Boys and girls, what is going on? It is another week of NFL picks. Pretty good week two slate here, man. I'm excited. Week one was honestly a pretty good week, I would say. One, my team won, and two, we got some really good classic games that I'll get into. But yeah, I'm looking forward to week two, see what it holds. Hopefully, we get something like week one. And yeah, let's dive into the matchups, man. I'm gonna just talk you through each matchup. Kind of thought about who I think is gonna win each game. Again, these are almost finalized. I mean, usually I've switched maybe one pick here and there, but this is like my pick as of Wednesday morning as I'm recording this. But this should be out a little bit later today. And yeah, let's dive into the matchups, man. So we got a really good Thursday night game here. We got Washington Commanders taking on the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay in Lambeau Field. So Washington handled business in week one as expected. They beat the Giants with a pretty good defensive showing. I mean, they held Russell Wilson to under 200 yards passing. And then Jaden Daniels flashed, for 300 plus yards with his arms and legs. And I mean, that's a pretty that's a pretty good debut to start the season, that is. But it also came against, a struggling Giants, offense and defense. And, you know, that faces, he's facing a Packers defense here that's just, I mean, that just, they obviously got Micah Parsons alongside Rashawn Gary, so they just look pretty terrifying. They did, shut down Detroit as well, and that's just tells you a little bit about how I think they're going to come into this season. And Jordan Love's got a pretty good arm. I think he's got a steady offense full of young weapons. Each one of these teams I think has a good chance to win, but it's one thing to be the home team, but it's another thing to come in looking more complete. Lambeau on a short week, two straight home games for the Packers. They don't have to travel. Washington does, from DC to Wisconsin. So on Lambeau, the shot, I think that, they're the home team. There's no reason not to pick them here, and they just look really good. Packers' mix of defense and rhythm on offense should be enough to stay 2-0 to open up the year. So I actually am going to pick the Packers here. Commanders dropped to 1-1, nothing to be too down about. I mean, they're still a good team. I think they'll be in the mix right when the season's over for possibly a playoff spot and maybe, a higher seed. So nothing to get, too upset about, but I think the Packers are just a little bit better coming into this game, and they're the home team. So I am going with Green Bay. Moving on to the Sunday slate of games, we got an interesting divisional one here. We got the New York Giants taking on the Dallas Cowboys. So the Giants look like a team that's still looking for answers. I mean, Russell Wilson was just not effective for them. Offense only put together 6 points in an ugly loss to Washington. And then Dallas, they were pretty competitive against the Eagles, albeit it is a division game. So Dak Prescott didn't really get much help from his receivers. I mean, CD Lamb dropped a lot of balls. They just clearly look like they missed Michael Parsons on defense as well. But the Cowboys did push the Eagles, so that's a good sign for them. But they do return home against the Giants, who are really struggling. They just look a lot less stable right now, and the Cowboys just have a better quarterback right now, I think. I'm not going to say Russell Wilson's completely cooked, but they got a deeper roster. They got a chance to prove that Week 1 was just kind of a stumble against, the champs. So I actually think the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this game as well. They're going to win their home opener. Although it would be, kind of, I mean, I don't know. Russell Wilson does have a decent history against the Cowboys, but I don't know if he can turn back the clock that much. So I'm going to say the Cowboys win here. They just look a little bit better coming into this game. So yeah, give me Dallas. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is in Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, a rematch of Super Bowl 40. This was 20 years ago, which is pretty hard to believe. I was a toddler at the time, but it's still hard to believe it's been 20 years. But anyway, Seattle looked pretty good in their opener. Sam Darnold leaned heavily on JSN. He made an amazing catch, but they just couldn't generate explosive plays in that, loss to Seattle, or to San Francisco, that is. But defense was decent. There just wasn't much spark to them. On the other hand, the Steelers look a little bit more rejuvenated in Week 1. Aaron Rodgers, at quarterback, he torched his former team, the Jets. He threw for 4 touchdowns, and they won obviously on that 60-yard attempt by Baugh as well. And yeah, I mean Pittsburgh's offense looks pretty dangerous, but again, their defense also did not look good. So, are you gonna say, if I'm a Steeler fan, if I'm an optimistic Steeler fan, I'm probably looking at it as the defense was a fluke, but the offense wasn't. if I'm an outsider looking in, it's probably hard to believe that one of them is a fluke and one of them isn't. I mean, I'm assuming many people would go under the assumption that both was a fluke. Like I heard Nick Wright talk about that as well, like how he just thinks like it's not fair to say one, the offense wasn't a fluke, but the defense was. I mean, I'm one of those guys too. Like I don't know if the offense is going to sustain as much as they did against the Jets, and how good are the Jets? We don't know, but I think the defense will be better. And Ramsey made a great play on that ball. I think it was Garrett Wilson. Yeah, he just knocked it out. So he played pretty well. The defense still did get torched, but at the end of the day, they got it done when it mattered most. Seattle looked a little bit more predictable week one, and they lost. Pittsburgh coming into this game looks a lot more hungrier and a lot more kind of like destined to just get it done at their home opener, and they're coming in with a lot of momentum, a lot of rejuvenation. That's even a rejuvenation. Is that a word? I don't know. Whatever. But yes, Pittsburgh comes into this game a little bit more. I think rejuvenated, coming off a 60-yard game-winning kick, and coming home. There's no better feeling, I'm sure. Especially, they're excited about this team. So I think that Rodgers and the Steelers should build on this momentum. I'm kind of like, I wanted to pick Seattle here because like the Steelers do have a tendency to sometimes drop a give me game at home, but I think this one they should be fine in, and I just trust them to build on the momentum a little bit more than I trust Seattle to bounce back. So I'm going with the Steelers here at home. I think again this could. I'm not going to say this is a lock, but I think that they should be able to handle Seattle. But again, the Steelers, they do have a tendency to play down to competition. I think they will to an extent. I think Seattle will keep it semi-close. But yeah, I'm still going to roll with the Yinzers on this one just because, they're the home team and they're coming off a little bit more momentum. So yeah, give me the Steelers. Moving on to Rams at Titans, another interesting one here. I mean, the Rams, they leaned on their defense in week one. Houston got held to 9 points. Nate Landman is turning into a breakout. The Titans, I remember that. I mean, they just couldn't get anything going on offense. They couldn't even reach the 10-yard line. And then that was Cam Ward. I mean, Cam Ward only completed, 12 passes, albeit it's his first start. But, their defense has grit. At home, they might make it a fight. I think, Cam Ward at coming home, I mean, second start, maybe he bounces back. But the Rams look like they're kind of uncovering a hidden, gems again while being, they're tough in the trenches. Their defensive line looks pretty good. But I think Matthew Stafford keeps the Rams offense pretty afloat and steady. And the defense is just going to continue to get humming. I think the Rams have the bounce to come out in Nashville with a second straight win, and I think that's what they're going to do. I'm going to pick LA to win here. There's really no reason for me to believe that they won't keep it going. But I know that a lot of the 1-0 teams, I think that you don't want to lean on the week one performance too much, but I think that Cam Ward coming home, it's his first home start. I'm kind of iffy on this one, to be honest with you, so I might look into this again. But right now, I do think LA wins because they look a little bit better coming into this game, but I was kind of iffy on this one because who knows? I mean, maybe Cam Ward breaks out, maybe he has a half decent game, and maybe they come away with a win, a defensive game. Because, like I said, they made it tough on Denver. They didn't make it easy for Bo Nix, but they definitely. I don't know. I think the Rams are just a better team coming into this game, especially. So I'm going with LA on this one, but it was tough. Next up, a divisional game here. This could actually be a better game than you kind of think, but based on how both teams looked in week one. But obviously, Buffalo, the Bills, they got one of the wildest comebacks in their history and also obviously in recent years. Josh Allen threw for nearly 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. Ravens' huge lead in Sunday Night Football. Thank you, Buffalo, by the way. But that kind of performance is kind of why the Bills have been scary for all these years. They can win even when they seem hopeless. The Jets, on the other hand, they looked a little bit better than expected. I don't want to say on the other hand, but they did. On the other hand, meaning that they did lose, but they did look a lot better than expected. Justin Fields showed some flashes, and I'm proud of him, man. But Neuer lost to Pittsburgh. Obviously, New York is more competitive than they were in recent years. But I think Buffalo, they always play well against the Jets. I mean, the Jets, they should hang around, though, because divisional games are always tough. I feel like a lot of people don't, recognize that part. But I think that Buffalo is a better team coming into this game. And I think they'll take advantage of the Jets defense that did not look that good in week one. They gave up 4 touchdown passes to Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers offense. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win here. I don't think that this will be relatively a blowout or anything, but I think that Buffalo should be able to get a win here. And good teams, they find ways to win, and that's exactly what I think Buffalo will do here. Another AFC East matchup here. Neither of these teams impressed in Week 1 one bit. The Dolphins got embarrassed 33-8 in Indy. They looked unprepared and flat. Tua looked really, really bad. The Patriots, under the new leadership, looked like the same old team that they've been for the last few years. Drake May just struggled and struggled, and honestly, I had hope coming for him coming into Week 1. But both clubs need to prove that they're not sliding towards the bottom of the AFC, man. But Miami at least has a clear strength. They do have a little bit like Mike McDaniel. I don't think he's a bad coach. I don't. I think that their offensive skill players are also they have a little bit more going for them, and they're obviously the home team. Dolphins have a better chance to just shake off, I think, a little bit of a poor start and find some rhythm against a New England team that's still trying to look for their identity a little bit more. I want to see a little bit more from Miami though, because the Colts just shut them down, and they just couldn't get anything going. So I want to see the Dolphins come out a little bit more forceful against New England here. Again, would I be surprised if this tilts the other way? I would not, but I am going to pick the Dolphins. They have a good history against New England in Miami, and I think that just will continue here. I think that New England, they definitely can win this game. Like I said, some of these are tough, but I think New England they just looked really bad coming in Week 1. I did not expect it, and the Dolphins as well did too. But you got to think, Colts new defensive coordinator in Lou Anarumo, they were just ready for Miami, man. So they brought the house, and yeah, I mean Daniel Jones looked pretty good against that Dolphins defense, which is just not something you want to see if you're Miami. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here to bounce back, and kind of a when in doubt go home team. So that's what I'm gonna do here. Moving on to my game, guys. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. This one is in Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio. So this one is my game, obviously. I said that. This is also open and orange for the Bengals. Obviously, the last time that happened, very infamous game in Week 1. But unlike last year, we did win a Week 1 game this year. We beat the New England Patriots, or the Cleveland Browns, rather. We lost to the New England Patriots last time. But this game feels a lot better because we're coming off a win and coming home, coming on the road, winning a game, albeit against an AFC North opponent on the road. That's not an easy feat. I mean, I'm never going to complain about a win, especially not an AFC North game on the road, especially against a team that, let's just face it, we've struggled to beat. Now it's 4 straight wins over Cleveland and the Browns, and which I love, by the way. But it's not so much that the way we looked. I think you're bound to look a little bit. You're bound to see a worse version of yourself against divisional opponents, and that's just predictable. So that's why you saw the defense. Look, the defense did struggle a bit, but I think like you saw them get the takeaways when it mattered most. So I'm not too upset about that. They looked a little bit stout from the jump. And even like that touchdown that they gave up on the first drive to Cleveland. The refs are just soft. I'm telling you, man. I mean, they were soft. Like on the first drive, they had 3 penalties that were they just gave Cleveland first down after first down after first down. So I'm not gonna say that they were totally against us from the jump, but if you watch that game, man, you saw how lopsided it was. So they weren't pretty, but you take the wins how you can get them. I mean, look, as a Bengals fan, I'll tell you, last year when we had these type of games, we never won a single one. So I'm not going to complain about the win. If other people want to do that, they can do that. I'm not going to be one of them. But that being said, we have a lot to clean up. But looking at our opponent this week, the Jags, they got a solid team win in Week 1. They leaned on the run game pretty much. I mean, ETN had freaking 150 games, 150 yards. They also traded their running back to Philadelphia as well, but Trevor Lawrence played a clean, unspectacular game, yeah, but still a clean game. But the Bengals, again, they weren't pretty. They snuck past the Browns despite being outgained in pretty much every statistical category. And their kicker just kind of blew it, man. But Joe Burrow has a reputation to find ways to close out games, and albeit it may not have been Joe Burrow, but the Bengals defense, much of what we didn't see last year, they got it done. And if we do make the playoffs, man, we'll look at the week one game as like, thank God we made the playoffs because of this one game and the defense showed up. So I'm hoping the defense can figure it out. I mean, I think it'll be tougher this week. The Jags, Joe Flacco, obviously I think he had a decent game, to be honest, but Trevor Lawrence, I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. I don't think he's I don't even think he's a mediocre quarterback. I think he's a decently average, above average quarterback. I think he's pretty good. Like when he's on it, he's on it. That's what I'm trying to say. But the Jaguars did show a lot of I guess glimpse of improvement against the Panthers, which is a good sign for them. I mean, I think they had a worse record than the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken, last year. So pretty good. But I liked the way our defense looked. I liked, what I saw from the offense on the first drive. Again, offensive line has to be better. They were okay the most of the game, but man, that stretch of three straight sacks. I'll put one of those sacks on Burrow. Just I feel like on some of those he's got to throw it away. But Joe, for the most part, man, he looked a little bit rattled. I mean, I was going to say his body language was a little bit off, but he looked a little rattled, so I want to see a little bit more from him on that regard. But again, man, he's Joe Burrow. You'll figure it out. I think the Bengals, I think they have higher expectations. Obviously, the last 2 years have been very disappointing. But I did like the fact that we got a win because we're 1-0 for the first time since 2021, and obviously that leaded us to winning the conference. But I just liked the fact that it was a division game, and it was the same game like 2 years ago, albeit different rosters and whatever. But the Browns actually had a pretty good record that year. But 2 years ago, 2023, we were dropped in that same situation, and it was we lost that game 24-3. So the fact that we won the week one game shows that the preseason reps for pretty much the entire team, it does pay off to an extent. So coming home against the Jacksonville Jaguars team that looked pretty good, but I just think that the Jags they show a glimpse of improvement, but the Bengals are just coming in like they again. There's no better feeling coming home after a road win, and this seems like I don't want to say a different team, but it feels like a team that's a little bit more hungry. The defense was telling Joe like we got you this year and everything, so I like that, and I hope that they do. But for this game, I'm not too worried about the offense right now. I think the offense will score points, but I think the Bengals will find a way to win here. I'm going to pick my guys here to get to 2-0 to start the season, and heading on a pretty interesting schedule here. I think that it's important for us to win this game. Home opener against a good Jaguars team that I think will be better, but I still think that the Bengals can win this game, and I think that they will. Again, though, Jacksonville wouldn't be too down after this. I mean, I think they're just kind of looking for improvements in the offense, improvements in the defense. They're looking to build a little bit, but yeah, I think the Bengals will remain undefeated after this win, and I'm hoping that they come in and put a complete game together, man, and they look a little bit better than they did week one. So give me the Bengals in this one. Moving on to an NFC matchup here, we got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the New Orleans Saints. They completely suffocated the Seahawks. Robert Saleh's completely taken over that defense. San Francisco looked like a pretty good unit. I mean, opposite of the struggling unit from last year. They completely shut down Seattle. The Saints, Spencer Rattler threw the ball 46 times. That is ridiculous. A really, really weird plan for him. And 13 points in a loss to Arizona. Offense isn't at full strength for San Francisco, but the defense should be just completely enough to just win this game. I'm going to go with San Francisco on this one. I'm not going to harp too much on this one because I just think if I'm a Saints fan, I'm livid. Just like I know that I'm not expecting much if I'm a Saints fan, but I'm livid at for letting Spencer Rattler throw that ball 46 times. That's ridiculous. Moving on to an AFC North matchup here. We got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns, they got to be absolutely frustrated. They dominated most categories against us, and they still lost because of their missed kick and I guess missed chances altogether. But Baltimore's frustration was even greater. They were in full control of Sunday night's game, and then Josh Allen and the Bills said, "Nope, watch this," which that's a good sign if I'm the Buffalo, and I thank them for it. You find ways to choke Baltimore, and I love it. But again, they're still a good team. I'm just giving them a hard time. But the way they lost was absolutely beautiful, and I love the fact that the Browns lost, obviously, because they were playing us. But yeah, both these teams lost. Both these teams are 0-1 coming to this game. So the good news, one of them is going to lose. The bad news, one of them is going to win. So yeah, who's it going to be? But again, Lamar looked really sharp. Derrick Henry was a force. Obviously, they had a fumble. He had a fumble at the end, but Ravens were seconds away from being a top story in in terms of how good they looked, and they're still a good team, man. But I think this is a classic, bounce back game. I think they're just motivated to prove that the collapse is, I don't want to say a fluke, but it was just something that just won't happen. Uh, I still like their defense. I think their defense again, they're not, I don't think they're like in a top like 5 unit or something, but I think they're definitely a good defense. Like I trust them a little bit. Like I think Jair will bounce back, and once they gel, I think they can be a top 5 unit. But I like the Ravens like to make some noise a little bit, like on their, because of they're obviously they got Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and all that. But I think Kyle Hamilton, he played a spectacular game, so I think they're just going to continue to get better. But I mean that's heart crushing if I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. But like I said, they're the home team here. The Browns, again, I think they can make it tough for Baltimore. I'm not going to sleep on Cleveland, in terms of like how tough they can make it. But I think the Ravens are just angry. They want to just stick it to Cleveland, like they do most of the time. But they are just fuming angry right now. And I think that honestly, I'm hesitant to say that division games are blowouts, but I think Baltimore is going to blow them out. And this is actually my lock of the week. I think they're just not going to lose this game. It would be hilarious if they did, but it would be hilarious if they blew out Cleveland, because I can't stand the Browns either. But yeah, I think that it's a bounce back game from home. I think they're just motivated as hell to just take it on Cleveland, and yeah, I think that's what they're going to do here. So I'm going to go with the Ravens as my lock of the week. Moving on to another divisional game here, we got the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions. The Bears had a dream start against Minnesota. Caleb Williams looked poised, sharp early, but he completely crumbled, and yeah, the Vikings just stole the game from them. Detroit, meanwhile, looked toothless, and they looked awful in a loss to Green Bay, with both the run and pass game ineffective. The defense could not generate pressure. Dan Campbell's squad has to prove that they belong, and I think that a division game here I think it'll be interesting. Chicago will make it interesting, but Caleb Williams, I'm not a believer in him. But Detroit's ceiling is higher. They're the home team here. If they find their stride, I think they'll win. That's what I think will happen here. I'm going with the Lions to win this game. Bears keep it close, but at the end of the day, Lions come away with a win. Battle of the Horses here. We got the 4 p.m. slate of games now. Denver Broncos taking on the Indianapolis Colts. So Denver's defense showed up in week 1, smothering Tennessee. They made Cam Ward look very, very lost. Bo Nix was a little sloppy, though. He missed some throws. He was kind of tossing the interceptions, but the Broncos kind of won in spite of him, I would say. But the Colts, they thrashed the Dolphins. Daniel Jones led, 7 straight scoring drives, which is good. Good sign for him, though, by the way. But I think that kind of raised some eyebrows along the league. I'm not saying that because it's just, obviously it's his first game, coming away from the Giants, who have been a disaster QB-wise for a long time. But I'm interested to see how he does there. I'm kind of rooting for him to do good in Indy, but I think it just feels like a good measuring stick for both teams. I think that, is Denver's defense good enough to carry them, or is Indy's surge actually kind of real? I did not expect him to beat Miami like that. But again, Miami just really, really struggled. Broncos' defensive edge, I think, gives them a path here, though, because I expect Bo Nix to bounce back. But this is a tough one because it's on the road. But I am going to go with Denver on this one. I think that they'll find a way to win. But yeah, both teams are looking to go 2-0. I think this will be I don't think this is going to be an easy game for either team. So again, like I said, this is one that I'm kind of hesitant on. But I am going to go with Denver on this one, just based on they're expected to be a little bit better this year than Indy. And I think that they just come into this game a little bit more. I think they're just ready. The fact that they won in spite of Bo Nix, who was pretty good. He was good his rookie year. I think he'll be good this year. But I think it's a good sign for Denver. So I'm going to go with the Broncos to get a win here on the road. Next up, we got Carolina Panthers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals opened up the season with an ugly 26-10 loss to Jacksonville. Bryce Young reverted to some of his just terrible habits. Apologies, did I say the Cardinals? I meant the Panthers opened the season with a 26-10 loss to Jacksonville. Arizona, look, I mean, they weren't like amazing offensively, but they got their job done over New Orleans as expected. But their corner, Will Johnson, he looked pretty good in the secondary. He made some good plays against the Saints. But the defensive identity, Kyler Murray's again. I don't think he's a bad quarterback by any stretch. I think he's a decent quarterback. But I think the Cardinals at home Panthers squad, something you kind of you want to see if you're Arizona, you're looking to just stick it to them. Panthers actually do have a good track record against the Cardinals, but I don't know. Panthers, I'm not a big believer in this year. Panthers squad just looks a lot more shakier. But I think Arizona should be able to lean on their defense and get more opportunities, and I think that their offense should be enough to secure a pretty good win here. So I'm gonna go with the Cardinals to get the win here at home. Yeah, it should be a good game though. I'm looking forward to it. Next up, we got probably the best matchup of the week because this is a Super Bowl rematch. We got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. This one is in Arrowhead. As the Chiefs, I'm gonna say they tend to play a lot of the tougher teams at home. I mean, all their tough games, when I think about it, like they're always at home. So and then a lot of the road games, like even like last week was a road game for Kansas City. The Chargers were, I mean, that crowd was mostly Arrowhead, mostly like Chiefs fans. Even though the game was in Brazil, it was anyway. I mean, that was a road game for the Chiefs. But yeah, anyway, the Eagles, I mean, they weren't at their sharpest. They still walked away with a win, which is the sign of, I guess, a champion, if you want to call it that. But they won with a lot of penalties, a lot of missing pieces. CD Lamb didn't have the greatest game, and the Chiefs, man, they're licking their wounds. I mean, they were carved up in Brazil by Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Their pass rush looked a little bit off, and I know that Chris Jones had some tension going on the sideline, but I'm looking to see Patrick Mahomes kind of reassert himself at home. They lost Xavier Worthy. They lost, obviously, Rashee Rice. I don't know if I think yeah, I mean, he's out. They're out, obviously, for this one. And Rashee Rice is out, obviously, suspended. But I'm saying the Xavier Worthy injury because he bumped into Travis Kelce. Obviously, that's not a good sign for the Chiefs. But, the Super Bowl rematch looks perfect. It looks inevitable in the sense not like I'm not saying it looks inevitable for them to play again in the Super Bowl, but it just looks inevitable for a good game. That's what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's set up. It's like kind of a chance for Patrick Mahomes to reassert himself. That's what I view as also inevitable. And I think that they're just out for blood, and it should be close. But I think that the Chiefs, they haven't started 0-2 in the Patrick Mahomes era, which is that's also a big key for me. But I think that they're a little bit more motivated. Not saying the Eagles aren't motivated. They want to also like to stick it to Kansas City. They also don't like Kansas City. So I think that the Chiefs, they are a little bit more motivated. So I'm therefore they're gonna play with a little bit more sense of urgency. The Eagles might let their guard down a little bit, even though I don't think that they completely will. I think they're on mission this year. But I'm gonna go with Kansas City actually to win. I know a lot of people are picking Philly, but I think that the loss might push Kansas City over the top here because I think they're a little bit more motivated, obviously coming off the 0-1, but the Super Bowl last year, they had to leave a terrible taste in their mouth. So don't be surprised if Philly wins because, I think they're a little bit better than Kansas City right now, but I am going to go with Kansas City to win this game. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, we got not a random matchup, actually. We got Michael Penix Jr. for taking on J.J. McCarthy, Falcons at the Vikings rematch of the national championship. So they produced nothing on the ground. They got completely bottled up. I mean, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, I gotta pronounce that guy's name properly, but Michael Penix Jr. was okay through the air, but the Falcons need balance. The Vikings also, I mean, J.J. McCarthy looked terrible, but he orchestrated 3 straight comebacks, later on, so he looked terrible the first half, but he orchestrated some comebacks. McCarthy, he looks pretty confident, and Kevin O'Connell coming home. I like the Vikings in this one. I think the Falcons are still trying to figure him out. I think that their momentum should continue here at home, and I'm going to go with the Vikings to get the job done over the Falcons. Yeah, I just think that they'll keep it going. I think I liked the way they looked. I mean, I watched that game actually. It was kind of crazy. They got off the mat, and after a pick six, I thought Chicago was going to run away with it. But Minnesota, credit to them, man. They picked themselves up as I thought they would. I thought Minnesota was going to win that game. But I actually like the way. Again, I have no reason to root for JJ McCarthy. I'm a Buckeye fan. He's a Michigan player. Uh, but I liked how he looked, and I was kind of rooting for it because I wanted to see what he could do. Really, I mean, even though I can't stand the college he went to, I'm not so much a hater of his. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I mean, Minnesota showed they could handle adversity, and yeah, I like the way he looked. I got to give him a lot of credit. But yeah, I got Minnesota in this one. Anyway, moving on to Monday Night Football. This is a really good game, actually. Buccaneers taking on the Texans. So Tampa Bay found a hero in OHIO. Amakalbuka. Two touchdowns carried them past Atlanta. Baker Mayfield was kind of up and down, but the Bucs showed some good flashes on offense, and their weapons clicked. Houston, on the other hand, they sputtered pretty badly. I mean, 9 points, 2 for 9 on third down in a loss to the Rams. Defense is very, very strong. Offense looked really out of sync, so I'm hoping that they can bounce back. But under new coordinator Nick Haley, that's going to take some time, I feel. But I think there's three things here that kind of come into my mind here. One, the Texans are at home. Two, they're coming angry off a loss. Three, I'm such a big believer in CJ Stroud, and I love CJ Stroud, and I just want to pick him to win. I think that this is actually going to be a really good game, better than people think. And the fact that they're at home here, it is kind of a 50-50. This is actually my upset of the week. I know the Bucs are 1-0, the Texans are 0-1, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on Houston a little bit more just because of how they ended the season last year and how they looked. But I actually am picking the Texans to win here simply, and this is actually my upset because I don't think many people expect them to beat Tampa because Tampa is just a little bit more of I don't want to call them a juggernaut, but more of like a proven team, I guess if you want to call them that. And I got to give a lot of credit to that offense. They look good, but I think honestly Houston will win this game. I think that them being the home team is a big part, and it's a chance to kind of them for them to reset. So that's what I think is going to happen here. I'm going to go with Houston. Lastly, we got Monday Night Football. This is 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Got to battle two West Coast teams. So this is 7 p.m. Pacific Time. But Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. So Justin Herbert looked like an MVP in Brazil. I mean, he picked apart Kansas City's defense, threw for 3 touchdowns. He looked pretty in sync with Jim Harbaugh, obviously. The Raiders also had a pretty good game. I mean, Geno Smith threw for 360 yards in a debut kind of system for Chip Kelly. Offense can spread defenses like pretty out. They can both pick apart team, but this is interesting because the Chargers and Raiders they do have like a history of like I mean there's periods where the Chargers have struggled against the Raiders and there's also periods where the Raiders have struggled against the Chargers. But I actually think the one thing for me is like yeah they're the home team the Raiders, but it comes down for me like I just like Justin Herbert a lot. Like I mean it's weird because like Justin Herbert, for all the comparisons people like to make him versus Josh, him versus Joe. Obviously Burrow's my guy because I'm a Bengals fan and I get to watch him play every week. I'm just such a big fan of him. And I gotta say he's very, very underrated. I honestly I love his arm. I think he has again I'm critical of him in the playoffs because he hasn't won a playoff game and he looks kind of dreadful in some of those games, especially that Jacksonville second half. But I do kind of I really like him and I really I expect kind of a shootout here to be honest with you. One thing about the Raiders is I don't think they're gonna give in. And yeah, the Patriots are not a great team, but I really liked, the way that Geno Smith looked. I really did. And even Action Genty, he was not at his best, but Brock Bowers going to continue to do his thing. So, they held, Drake May, I don't think he had a terrible game, but he wasn't that great. They held Travion Henderson also, I think it was 20 something yards. So, yeah, they had pretty good defensive game plan as well. So, I think that they can definitely stifle, LA's offense, but I'm going to go with LA to actually win. But I think the Raiders do cover this game. I don't know what the spread is, to be honest, but I'm assuming that the Chargers are favored by probably like 3 or 4. But again, the Raiders are the home team, so again, that might be less. But I think the Chargers will cover, um, or the Raiders will cover rather, and I think the Chargers will get a 2-point win here. So I'm going with LA on this one, and that is all for my picks. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Means a lot. But let's just see how it goes, man. I'm hoping we get another good week, like I said. So you guys take care. I'm out.